Hello everybody, welcome back to Christ Church in Warwick Nabil for this week's reflection, the second Sunday in Lent for 2021. And I hope that your Lenten journey is going well so far. There is one thing about the desert spirituality, and that is that solitude should never be confused with loneliness or isolation. It doesn't necessarily mean abandonment of the world, but rather solitude should invite us deeper into an engagement and an encounter with the world in which we live. The thing about entering the desert in this season of Lent is that it exposes our vulnerabilities. It brings to the surface our deepest fears that lie well hidden most of the time, but dwell nonetheless in that deepest part of our being. The desert offers no escape. And such is the text for this week's Gospel, where Jesus says, "There is trouble ahead for the Son of Man." Rejection, crucifixion, death. Well, Jesus is trying to say that there wasn't just danger ahead, but that he was going to walk straight into it. And then radically, Jesus says, "You must follow me there." Are you and I ready for such a shake-up of our lives? Luckily, death is not God's last word, but rather life is. And after 3 days of burial, there is resurrection. As one of my commentators quotes, essentially, Mark is saying that the Son of God will not dial down his ministry to spare his own life or even to ease his suffering. His commitment to the healing of humanity literally knows no limits. And neither, Easter tells us, does God's life-giving power. What a wonderful reality for us. And therefore, in the desert, our soul is brought to maturity through testing, where endurance, tenacity, forbearing, and courage are the traits needed to survive it. As one of my favourite Lenten writers, Alessandro Pranzanto writes, "If you therefore go to the desert to be rid of all the dreadful people and all the awful situations in your life, you'll be wasting your time. You should go to the desert for a total confrontation with yourself. For one goes to the desert to see more and to see better. One goes to the desert especially to take a closer look at the things and the people one would rather not see. To face situations one would rather avoid. And to answer questions one would rather forget." In the spirit of Dadiri, which I explained a little bit about last week, we call to the deep, listening and quiet of inner calm and still awareness. And it calls to us. We wait on God. We listen to what we need to deal with in our lives. We anticipate that God will guide us through any difficulties and fears that we may have. We trust that God's peace, deep and everlasting, will dwell within us. We encounter a return to wholeness as human beings in our own faithful pilgrimage towards God who loves us and who calls us each by name.